Hey, everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. We love tackling your questions, and this one is a fascinating one. We had someone write in asking about the connection between eidetic memory and autism in adults. Have you heard of that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's definitely something that's been, kind of floating around out there
Yeah,
in the public consciousness. It's really interesting.
yeah. So we're going to be looking at a blog post from Cheap ABA to try to get to the bottom of this. And I think what's really cool about it is that, we hear a lot about the challenges that people with autism face.
Right.
But this might actually point to kind of a hidden strength.
Yeah, exactly. And it really speaks to the whole idea of neurodiversity.
Hmm.
When we think of eidetic memory, we often think of that, kind of almost mythical photographic memory. But the
Hmm.
blog post actually goes into, the nuances of what that really means.
Okay, so break it down for me. What is eidetic memory? Because it sounds like a superpower.
Well, it's not quite as simple as, having a perfect mental photograph, but it's
Hmm.
pretty close.
Okay.
The blog describes it as the ability to vividly recall images, conversations, objects, patterns, even complex sequences. And get this, they say people with eidetic memory can even recall the tones and inflections of a conversation,
Ah,
as if they're replaying a recording.
that is wild.
Yeah.
Okay, but there has to be a downside, right? Like it can't be all sunshine and roses.
Well, you're right there because having such a powerful memory, it could lead to some unique challenges.
Right.
And the blog post highlights the fact that, you could have information overload where your brain is constantly bombarded with memories and sensory data.
Yeah.
It's almost like having a supercomputer for a brain, but no off switch.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're constantly filtering through like a million things at once, like a constant flow of information, and it never stops.
Right. Filtering and prioritizing information becomes absolutely crucial. And, they even say it can lead to anxiety and sensory fatigue for some people.
Okay. Wow. So we have this like incredible ability to recall information,
Right.
but it's also a double-edged sword. Now, how does autism fit into all of this?
Well, this is where the blog post gets really interesting. It suggests that research has found a potential link between autism and a higher likelihood of having eidetic memory.
Okay, wait. So we often hear about the challenges of autism, but you're saying there might actually be a cognitive advantage linked to it.
Precisely. It challenges a lot of our assumptions and makes us consider the diverse ways that, human brains can function.
Wow.
It's kind of flipping the script on how we think about both of these things.
All right. My mind is blown. So if this connection exists, what are the implications? Is this like a superpower for people with autism, or is it more complicated than that?
It's definitely more nuanced than that,
Yeah.
because as we've discussed, even with all of its potential, eidetic memory can present some very real challenges.
Okay, well, let's dig into those benefits first. What does the blog say about how this could be an asset?
Well, they highlight a number of potential advantages. Think about learning for a second.
Yeah.
Someone with eidetic memory could absorb information from, textbooks or lectures almost effortlessly.
Oh my gosh.
Imagine how much easier it would be to grasp complex concepts or memorize, formulas and
Oh
facts.
yeah, like all that stuff I had to use flashcards for in school.
Right.
Forget about it.
Exactly. They also suggest that this kind of memory can lead to enhanced creativity and problem-solving skills.
Oh, interesting.
If you can remember detailed patterns and information so easily, you can connect those seemingly unrelated ideas in unique and innovative ways.
So not only is it easier to learn, but you can potentially like think outside the box and solve problems in a way that most people wouldn't.
Absolutely.
That's pretty incredible.
It is, and we can't forget the attention to detail that comes with it. Think
Yeah.
about professions where precision is key.
Mm.
Engineering, computer programming, even art. That ability to recall specific details and patterns would be invaluable.
Yeah, they did specifically mention attention to detail as like a potential benefit in the blog post.
Yeah.
This is starting to sound like it's a significant advantage.
It really does seem that way. But of course, as we talked about earlier, there is a flip side to all of this.
Okay, so flip that coin. What are the downsides that they talk about?
Well, we've already touched on information overload,
Right.
which can be especially tough for individuals with autism who might already be sensitive to sensory stimulation. Imagine, being constantly bombarded with memories, even those that are, irrelevant, or potentially distressing.
Right,
It could
yeah.
be extremely overwhelming.
Right, and you can't just, like, shut it off.
Exactly. And another challenge they mention is difficulty filtering information.
Right.
With so much data coming in, it can be hard to separate what's important and tune out the rest.
Yeah.
This could make everyday things like focusing on a conversation or completing a chore very, very difficult.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about remembering everything, it's about managing it and being able to, like, be present in the moment.
Right. And this is where the idea of eidetic memory and autism becomes especially interesting,
Yeah.
because individuals with autism often process sensory information in unique ways, and this could be amplified with eidetic memory.
So we're talking about a potential strength, but one that comes with challenges,
Yeah.
especially for, somebody who's already navigating the complexities of autism.
Absolutely.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
Really is. But it's so fascinating.
It is.
All right, so we've got some groundwork laid here. We're talking about eidetic memory, this ability to recall information. Sometimes it sounds like perfectly.
Yeah.
And we think it might be linked to autism. But, like we said, it's not as easy as saying like, oh, it's a superpower.
Yeah.
There's downsides. And everyone's experience is unique. But I'm curious about how this knowledge can help us better understand and support people with autism.
Yeah, that's the big question, right? I think the first step is recognizing that eidetic memory is just one facet of a person's overall, cognitive profile.
Huh.
It's not about defining someone by this one thing.
Right.
Instead, it's about understanding how it interacts with all the other aspects of their experience.
So it's not just saying like, oh, this person has eidetic memory, so they must be like this.
Right. Exactly.
It's like seeing the whole picture.
Exactly. We have to be careful not to generalize, because every individual with autism is unique.
Right.
And their experience with eidetic memory, if they even have it, will be shaped by, so many things.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So how can we actually use this knowledge to create supportive environments?
Well, the blog post does get into some strategies. One of the things I thought was really interesting was the emphasis on information management. If someone is constantly bombarded with, detailed memories and sensory input, it's really important to give them ways of organizing and prioritizing all that information.
So it's almost like creating a filing system for their
Yeah.
brain
Exactly.
where they can categorize things and be able to access what they need without being overwhelmed.
Exactly. And that might involve using visual aids like charts or diagrams to, represent information in a way that makes more sense.
Okay.
It could also mean breaking down tasks into smaller steps or creating clear routines that help people feel safe and, know what's coming next.
I could see how those strategies would be beneficial for anybody,
Oh, yeah,
but especially somebody with autism who needs a little more structure
for sure.
and predictability.
Yeah, and it's not just about external support either.
Okay.
We can also teach those individuals to develop their own internal strategies for managing all that input. So things like mindfulness or relaxation exercises, or just encouraging them to take breaks when they're feeling overwhelmed.
So you're giving them like the tools
Yeah.
to manage all that.
Right. It's about giving them that sense of self-awareness so they can deal with their experiences
Right.
in a way that feels empowering,
Right.
instead of overwhelming.
It's not about like fixing them. It's
Yeah.
about saying like, here's some tools you can use to make this work for you.
Exactly. And it's not just about, managing the hard stuff.
Yep.
We need to think about how to use eidetic memory to actually help learning and development.
Well, how do we do that? How do we turn it into a positive thing?
Think about how it could help education. Imagine a student who can remember every detail of a historical event, or a scientific formula, or even a really complex piece of literature.
I mean, yeah. Like I said, I struggle to remember my multiplication tables. Imagine someone who could just like breeze through that.
Right, and it's not just rote memorization. It
Right.
can help with critical thinking and problem solving. Imagine if you could just visualize those complex systems or patterns in perfect detail. You could have huge breakthroughs in things like engineering or design or research.
So it's like instead of saying it's weird or it's a burden, it's like, no, this could actually be really beneficial.
Exactly. We have to shift our perspective and see the strengths instead of the deficits.
I feel like this is changing the way I think about autism and neurodiversity in general.
I'm glad to hear that. I think that's one of the most important things we can do is question those old ideas and really look at the complexity of the human experience.
Right.
There's so much we don't know about the brain, and every new thing we discover just opens up more possibilities.
Yeah. This conversation is really just the beginning, right?
Yeah, for sure.
We're just kind of like getting our feet wet.
Totally.
But even those insights are so valuable.
Right.
And I think it's clear that we need to keep learning about this and be really sensitive to everyone's individual
For
experiences.
sure, there's no one right way to approach this.
Right.
It's about giving each person the tools and support they need to thrive.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
Mhm.
What are the next steps in terms of research and support and advocacy for people with autism who might have eidetic memory?
I think more research is key.
Okay.
We need to really dig into the connection between eidetic memory and autism. And
Uh-huh.
we need to do it in a way that is ethical and respectful of the autistic community.
So autistic voices need to be front and center.
Exactly.
In the research.
Exactly. We need to partner with the community, not speak for them.
Okay, so research is key, but what about actually supporting people who are dealing with this right now?
Well, we've already talked about information management and creating supportive environments,
Right.
but I think we should also think about how technology can help.
What do you mean? Like, how can technology play a role?
Think about things like note-taking apps or voice-to-text software or even virtual reality that can be adjusted for sensory preferences.
Okay.
Those tools can really help someone manage information overload and communicate better and just engage with the world in a way that feels safe for them.
Yeah. And technology could be used to actually create personalized learning plans that play to their strengths, right?
Exactly. It's about using technology to make things fair and accessible for everyone.
This is exciting stuff. It feels like we're starting to really get a better understanding of autism.
I agree. We're seeing the challenges, but we're also seeing all that incredible potential.
Yeah. This whole conversation is really pushing me to think differently about it all.
Yeah, me too. And that's the amazing thing. We're always learning new things about how the brain works, and it makes you realize how much we still have to discover.
This is really just the beginning.
Hmm.
But these insights that we've talked about are important.
They are.
It's becoming clear that this could be a real asset for individuals with autism.
For sure.
But we need to be thoughtful and realize that each person's experience is different.
Absolutely.
It's not one size fits all.
No.
Yeah.
It's about giving people the support they need to figure out their own path.
So one thing the blog post mentions is the potential for exploitation.
Mm.
And you said earlier that research needs to be done ethically. But what about just in the real world?
Yeah,
Are there concerns about people taking advantage of someone with eidetic memory?
that's a real concern.
Yeah.
And we need to be aware of it. Imagine someone with eidetic memory being forced to use their abilities for things that are unethical or harmful. We need to protect people and make sure that their rights are respected.
So not only teaching individuals to stand up for themselves,
Right.
but also, like, as a society,
Yes.
we have to be aware of this
And protect people.
and protect people. Yeah. I mean, this has been such an interesting conversation.
It has.
We've talked about the good and the bad of eidetic memory and ethical considerations and what we need to do to create these really supportive environments.
Yeah.
It feels like there's still so much to talk about, though.
I know. I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
Yeah. I can't wait to see where we go next.
Me too.
Wow. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive. Eidetic memory and autism.
Mm.
We started out asking, is this even real? And look at us now.
I know. It's amazing how much there is to unpack.
Right. We talked about the ups and downs, the ethical stuff,
Yeah.
what research still needs to be done. It's been a wild ride.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
That's what's so cool about these deep dives.
Yeah.
There's always more to learn, right?
Absolutely. And that's where our listeners come in.
Exactly. This is about getting people thinking and, maybe even doing their own research. Remember that question at the end of the blog post? Would you want eidetic memory?
Oh, that's a good one. It really makes you think.
Right. Like, imagine remembering everything. Would it be a blessing or a curse? I don't know. What do you think?
It's a tough one. I mean, on the one hand, all that knowledge and the ability to recall things instantly, that's amazing. But on the other hand, maybe forgetting things is important too.
Yeah, maybe it helps us focus on what matters,
Exactly. It's not about right or wrong. It's about what works for each person.
So, to everyone listening, we want you to really think about that question. Would you want eidetic memory? And why? What feels good about it and what feels scary?
And as you're thinking about it, remember what we've learned from this deep dive. Those potential benefits and those challenges, especially for folks with autism.
Information management, having the right kind of support, and even technology. All of that can make a huge difference.
And most importantly, remember to be respectful. Everyone's experience is different.
That's such a good point. This deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me.
Me too.
I feel like I have a whole new understanding of autism and eidetic memory and just the amazing things the human brain can do. But there's still so much more to learn.
Always. And that's what keeps things interesting, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So keep exploring this topic, read more, talk to people, keep the conversation going.
And don't forget to check out the Cheap ABA blog for more great articles like the one we talked about today.
That's right. All right, everyone, until next time, keep those questions coming, keep those brains working, and keep diving deep.